Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for being with us today. My name is Allie. I'm Director of Communications for Face It Together. I'll be leading today's webinar, and I am joined here by Carlos and Katie, and they're going to introduce themselves shortly, but just want to go over those quick housekeeping items first. So, for anyone who's unfamiliar, we are from Face It Together. We are an addiction wellness nonprofit, and so we provide peer-to-peer coaching for those impacted by addiction, and that includes family members. So, if you have any questions about that, or maybe you'd like to get connected to one of our peer coaches, you can do that at wefaceit.together.org. During our conversation today, you can ask questions in the chat or using the Q&A button. If you'd like to ask an anonymous question, you can do that in the Q&A section. And then lastly, I always like to mention that these webinars are a benefit to our Fit at Work program. And that's where we partner with employers to provide our peer coaching as a free mental health benefit to employees and their family members. So coaching is completely confidential in that program. So maybe you've seen our materials in your break room or in an onboarding packet. That means that your employer believes in this approach and they want you to be well. So please don't hesitate to reach out if we can provide any help to you. All right. Today we are answering the question, will I lose friends if I get sober? I think we're going to get into a lot of different elements of that, which I'm excited for. But first, if we want to do some quick introductions, let people know kind of what brings you here today. Carlos, if you'd like to start.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Carlos. I am a peer recovery coach here at Face It Together. I also work with Spanish speakers, and I am also at St. Francis and the Drug Court, connecting people and getting them connected with Face It Together. As Avi has briefly mentioned, part of our coaching services is that shared lived experience component. So what brings me today too has been my own personal journey of what it's been like to find my own recovery. And as a topic of today too, what did that mean for my friendships and like the future friendships that I was going to have. So I'm happy to be here today to discuss this topic and hopefully be able to answer you guys' questions and give some guidance as you're navigating your own sobriety or your own wellness too.
Thank you, Carlos. Katie?
Yeah, my name is Katie Lale. I am the Director of Operations at Face It Together. And up until recently, I have also been a coach at Face It Together for around 5 years. And outside of Face It Together, I also do some private practice therapy as well. I'm a person with lived experience with addiction, so I've firsthand experienced that transition from using to not using and the impact that that had on my friendships and relationships in my life. And it's something that I really enjoy talking with people about and like helping people navigate and normalizing some of that. So super happy to be here today.
Yay. Thank you both. So I'm going to start with kind of a broad question, and I think we'll go from there and we'll get into some more nuances from there. But I just want to start and ask just how did your relationships change over time in sobriety? Katie, if you want to reflect back.
Yeah. So I think for me it was really difficult because when I was using, I felt like I had like a solid group of people that I spent time with. And so I was switching into this place where I knew I couldn't use anymore, and that was really important to me. And I also knew that if I like put myself, I was awaiting sentencing for some federal charges. So I knew if I put myself in a situation where I would get caught up with something, I was likely to like be in big trouble and like mess up my chances of like, having the best sentence I could possibly get. So it was really important for me to keep myself safe. And so I found myself feeling lonely a lot. And people would reach out often and they would say, "Hey, do you want to hang out?" And like I wanted people to know I was sober, but I also didn't want like people to think that like I thought that they were less than me now or like that I didn't like appreciate them. And I'm like, "Yeah, we can hang out. Do you want to maybe like go to an NA meeting and grab coffee afterwards?" And that was like kind of always my thing, like going to a meeting or going to like a safe place like that felt safe for me. And so it was really like this process of like seeing who was willing to like actually still engage with me in this new sober life. And not very many people were, right? And that doesn't mean that I completely like cut them out. But it was this interesting process of like kind of just like fading, right? Because like as my life changed, it really didn't align with their life anymore. And it was like almost talking to a stranger, like when we would take that time to connect. And so there was some loss there. There was some grief there for relationships that were really meaningful to me during really difficult times of my life. Um, but it also wasn't in a way that um, felt bad. It felt like growth for me and just the type of relationships that I had in my life.
Hmm. Yeah. What about you, Carlos?
Yeah. So similar as to like what a lot of people experience finding sobriety, it's really that challenge of what it looks like to take a step away from friends who may still be, drinking or using drugs. And it's something that's not really done so easily. When you think about all the time spent together, perhaps the even shared trauma, the things that you guys talk about, that bond that's created, right? It's really hard to simply just take a step away from. And oftentimes people find themselves still going back to these people and these places that's not beneficial to their wellness. And a lot of people end up learning, what is really more meaningful to them at the end of it all. I, for myself, was definitely one that had to, experience what it was to go back to those friendships, having to relapse because of like the environment that I was in, and then coming on the other side again, realizing, okay, I really have to take a step back. Which, like Katie said, it's a period where it can feel lonely, but there's a really a distinct difference of what it means to be alone and be lonely. When you take a step back and you're rebuilding yourself, yes, you are going to find yourself alone, but that doesn't need to mean that you are, needing to be feeling lonely. There can be peace, in being able to spend time with oneself and learning about oneself. And so through that, I was able to really understand what were my values, what were my goals, what were my morals. And through that, self-awareness and being able to identify what that meant to me, what that looked like to me, I was able to then find the group of people that share those similarities with me, being able to form those friendships that align with my morals, with my values, with where I was heading in life. So to me, the transformation or the way that things changed first started with the way that I was seeing myself, how I was, identifying and what aspects in my life I held in high importance. And then that led me to being able to meet people who, as well, shared those similarities. And I think one of the biggest things and transformations that I saw was more so that through the care that I had for myself and being able to, validate myself, love myself, treat myself kindly, what I saw was that transformation too with friendships, being able to receive that support, that kindness in return too, which I wasn't really seen in past friendships. With the people that I was partying with, that I was drinking with, there wasn't a really as a big meaningful connections as I thought there was because there was a disconnection with myself. So I think that at the end, that transformation really came down to that connection with myself. I was able to connect with new friendships, new relationships in a more profound way than I even thought before. And so that's really been something noticeable that I've seen for myself in the friendships that I have now and how they've changed through my sobriety and my wellness.
Oh, that's really great to hear. Yeah, just how that connection to your values, connection to yourself manifests into more meaningful relationships, and so wonderful. Katie mentioned kind of the gentle ask about NA meetings, like inviting people to meetings, and maybe that's how you were letting people know that you were pursuing sobriety. Um, Carlos, how did you go about that? Did you Did you tell those kind of, friends you used to drink with that you were sober? Like what kinds of reactions did you receive? How did that go?
Yeah, for me, it was not a explicit, hey, I'm sober now. It was more so, hey, I'm gonna be taking a step back. Like, I don't know for how long or if it's gonna be indefinite, but just know that right now I'm gonna be focusing on myself. And I think that that was, without a given, they understood that I was taking a step back to work on my sobriety. And through that, taking step back and focusing myself, it just led me to a different path. And that's sometimes what ends up happening. Some people are there in your life for a specific moment and they serve a specific purpose. And likewise, you're in people's lives for a moment and you serve a purpose and during that time. And so what ended up happening was that we just went separate ways. Now, with forming new friendships, that there was a talk of that. It was hey, I'm sober, so like I'm not gonna be going to bars or I don't really value right now like the partying, the staying up late. So right off the bat, any new friendships that I was making, they understood too, where I was in life and what I was working on for myself. And I think that that was really meaningful to be able to share with people because it's really telling too how people value you or treat you with how they respect their sobriety too. And that can be a little bit scary, right? Because you don't want to look lame. You want to be invited to things, and if you mention sobriety, there is a worry that you're gonna be treated a little bit more different, or maybe you're not gonna be invited when they go out to eat because they're gonna be drinking. So you almost don't want to say something because you don't want to like risk that. But I think that it's really meaningful to be able to share, that you're sober with new connections because you also don't know if they themselves are looking for sobriety or are sober too, and you'd be surprised at the many people who you're able to connect through by sharing your own sobriety. So to me, it's been more about me sharing my sobriety with new friendships that I've been forming, and they've all gone pretty well. Again, some people they respect it, but maybe they feel bad hanging out with you, and that's okay. You're not gonna supposed to have everybody in your life, but the ones that do stay, you're able to form again like that really meaningful connection with them through that understanding and that respect, that they have towards your wellness and your sobriety. So it's been a really great experience for me when it comes to sharing my sobriety with new friendships.
Yeah, and just kind of saying it from day one, just being really clear that that's important to you.
Hmm.
Katie, anything else about your personal experience, or maybe you've helped members kind of work through this? I could imagine like that, um, sobriety announcement or like telling people that they've made this changes can be really anxiety inducing. So I'm wondering if you've had anything in your story or helped folks kind of navigate that.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, as Carlos was talking, I was thinking about like how much different it is with like alcohol than it is with, like illicit drugs
Sure.
because alcohol is like such a like culturally and socially like acceptable thing. And so for me, I found my story was a little bit different and like people that were using drugs also didn't want to hang out with me, right? But that was okay because it wasn't necessarily so safe for me to like be around them. But it is like a thing where we kind of build it up in our heads, like, oh, we need to like make this announcement, let everybody know that we're sober. But like people don't actually care if you're drinking as long as they're drinking, And so I have told people I'm like just show up and pretend that you're drunk, right? Like just show up and like nobody's gonna notice and like just be a curious observer as you're like navigating these situations. And I think about there's this a one gal and she has done amazing in her wellness journey and she was very social and she had a very like social group that went to happy hour every you know however many nights a week, right? And so as she was like just getting sober, she was like do you think I can still go to happy hour? And I was like, yeah, I think you can, but I think that you probably won't want to. And so she had went a few times and like maintained that abstinence, but for her, she did come and she said that was not fun. And and so, there is that piece of like, no, you don't necessarily need to make it a big announcement. Like you don't need it to be anything, but you might have some perspective change on like the people that you want to have in your life.
Mm-hmm. Have either of you had to let go of a friendship? I'm kind of hearing, like, yeah, I think Katie, you said like kind of a fading, where
Hmm.
those just relationships kind of naturally changed over time. Did you either of you have any experience where it had to be kind of a, um, yeah, maybe a harsher like cutoff, or just like, this isn't serving me anymore? Just anything around that we want to share for folks.
Yeah, for me, it wasn't like a harsh cutoff. Like I did, explain that I was going to be taking a step back, and this is from a friend group who was really there for me at the time when I felt like, I didn't have a home and I wasn't seen at home. This group of friends really like accepted and saw me for who I was. So it wasn't easily done, in fact, like having found sobriety for a year, I did return to this friend group. And what ended up happening was that eventually, being around the party life, the drinking, it just takes having a bad day to return to the drinking, which what happened to me. And so that there, made me realize like, hey, this isn't something that I can do. It's that saying I can't have my cake and eat it too. I can't have the friendship and then also have sobriety. I saw it for myself that like it just wasn't going to be feasible. So it really came down to, okay, what do I want more in life right now? What is going to be what I value, what's important to me. And to me, it came down to it being sobriety. So I had to communicate that with them, right? It's like, hey, I'm going to take a step back. Don't know how long it's going to be, but I just have to focus on myself. And then through, the passing of time, it just led to the point of just us going in separate directions, without any, holding any resentment or any malice. It's just, how life goes that like people just go their separate ways. And so that was one of the things that was helpful in my sobriety was just understanding the change of people, right? Like the change of the settings, and putting myself around other people, that were going to be a positive impacting me and being in places that were going to be more positive impact to me. So having to let go of people for me was a very thing that helped me in my sobriety. That made it easy. Of course, I'm not saying that that is the only way to go about it, right? Like I know plenty of people whose maybe parents still drink, right? Can't just cut out parent. I know people who still hang out with friends who drink, right? Like, and if it's something that's feasible to them, that they can do it, by all means, right? But you have to be honest with yourself. You have to be realistic with yourself. Like, can you do this, right? Can you really do this, remain sober, continue to follow your wellness with still having these friendships? Are they, if they're impacting you negatively, right? That's a moment to have to reflect and see what next steps you can take. So, but again, for me, it was what was helpful for me was moving away from this friend group and finding new friends down the road. So, yeah.
Yeah, and you make a really great point about family, because I think it is a little different, and maybe we'll come back to that. But Katie, I wanted to give you a chance to answer too.
Yeah, like as you asked that question, I mean, a lot of people, I pushed a lot of people out, and I think about like it's not just necessarily the drugs that are like the draw, it's the lifestyle, it's the distraction, it's like all the chaos that is happening, right? And I think about like after I got arrested, there were like people that were on my case that were arrested with me that like you're not supposed to talk to, right? And like I was still kind of engaging with them. And I remember like and these were people that I considered really close, like people that like had my back, that showed up when I needed them, that like, like it, I felt very close to them. And I also really enjoyed the drama of just like the all the things going on, right? And the selling of drugs and all the things. And so I had one of those people reach out to me. And I mean, we'd still kind of been like messaging back and forth. And he said, I need to meet you at the gas station. I said, okay, well, I work. Maybe we could meet in the morning while I'm on my way to work and blah, 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 blah. And so like I'd made this plan to meet with him. And like as I was like driving there, I was like, I can't do this, right? Like I just see like how many ways this could go wrong for me and like how at danger like my freedom could be. And I made the decision like not to stop and to message him and be like, hey, I'm sorry, like I just cannot. um and like the message that I got back was like super like angry and kind of like accusatory of like, attacking my character and like what kind of person that I was. And also, like, I had to like miss out on the drama of like knowing whatever juicy thing that he was going to tell me that he couldn't tell me over the phone, and like, so I had to like let go of not only that relationship that I really valued, but also um, the lifestyle as
Mhm.
well. And it didn't feel good at the moment, but it was also like a really defining moment in like, who do I want to be, right? What am I willing to risk? What do I want my life to look like? And so it was truly making a decision between myself and my future and this relationship that I felt strongly about maintaining.
Mm. Thanks for sharing that. Was it like a lot of little things coming together that led to that? Like it does sound like a very pivotal, like a very significant decision to like keep driving. Like how do you describe like what led up to that or what was like the defining factor behind it?
Fear, right? Like
Yeah.
I just didn't, it was enough for me to get arrested by the feds one time. Like I didn't want to get like wrapped up in something else. Like I was afraid. It was self-preservation, right? Like I wanted to put myself first. I wasn't willing to like risk my freedom, my sanity, any of that anymore. So, yeah.
Thank you. All right. So we've talked a lot about kind of yeah, navigating those relationships, like putting ourselves first. I do think we should touch a little bit more on kind of like the loneliness or the importance of then making new connections. And so I would love if you would both kind of share more about that and how, and it's something we talk about all the time at Face It Together. The coaches are constantly sharing suggestions for members because it can be really hard to make those new relationships. So, if maybe if someone feels like they're starting over or they feel lonely, like what do we want to tell those folks?
Mhm. Yeah, you know, first and foremost, it's not something that is easy. And I think here at Face It Together, we really understand that because we've been through that too. I think that that's powerful to be able to have that peer support of understanding too. Um, like I said earlier, and I tell members, right, there is a clear distinction on what it is to be alone and what it is to be lonely, right? And like it's not a bad thing to be alone. It's can be a great thing to be able to do things on your own pace, at your own time, with your own peace. It can be a really beautiful thing. Of course, I think that for many people, what is hard about being alone is the thoughts that come along, right? Now your mind is racing, you're beginning to overthink, things are just kind of creeping inside your head. And that can be really tough to deal with. So, an advice that I give people is, hey, what do you like to do on your free time, right? Or think about when you were a kid. What were the things that you enjoyed to do then, right? Let's start incorporating those things into your routine. Especially, because when it comes to sobriety, you're gonna get a lot of time back into your day, right? I know for myself, when I wasn't at work, I was then after work, I was drunk, and then that was the rest of my day, right? So gaining back that time can be a little bit hard too at saying, hey, how am I gonna fill this up, right? So again, it's about thinking, what are the things that make you happy, right? What activities do you think would bring you joy? Let's start incorporating them into your routine. For me at the time, it was reading, something that I liked to do in middle school, right? Like I was like, I haven't read in a minute. Let me pick up reading again. And that was something that was really valuable to me that helped me, pass the time when I was by myself, going to the library and reading books there, being around other people, right? Was my way of getting through the time when I was still rebuilding and finding friendships. So it really is, that moment of like doing things that you enjoy to do. And then it's also putting yourself out there, going to a meeting, right? And I know it can be intimidating and it's really hard. But doing something that you think you can do, right? Whether that is a meeting or maybe there's like a local event happening in your town. Maybe they're doing some crafts, right? Where you don't really have to talk to people and just go and sit there and do some crafts can be a good way to still be around people. Another one that I like to say is volunteering. For me, that was really helpful being around people and then doing something that made me feel like I contributed to something good. And even through volunteering, that like helped me meet people and like-minded people. And that's really where a lot of my friendships came from was putting myself in those spaces and continuing to go back to those spaces so that I could meet people in the meantime. So again, I know that it's a hard thing, but you gotta remind yourself too, right? That there can be peace with being alone. And if you find yourself being lonely, it's in those moments, looking into going to a meeting or volunteering just to be around other people can be a good thing too.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I think making friends in sobriety is different than making friends when you're using. I always think about like, I used meth, and so you get high with somebody and then you just like hang out with them for 3 days straight until everybody goes home and passes out, right? There's like no like needing to like build any relationship there. And like it is just like an alternate world that you live in, right? Like you just show up and like, oh, well, this person is at my house now for the next 3 days. Like I got company. It's fine.
Yep.
I'm fine. And so it's like such a weird just way of existing that is like not similar to like the real world and making friends. And so I did feel very lonely when I quit using. I think using like loneliness was a big piece of the reason I started using in the first place is like seeking that connection. So I knew for me personally, it was very important to make friends and like develop relationships because I knew if I didn't, that I would end up, swaying back in the opposite direction. And so I had to, first of all, learn that you like friendships don't just like magically happen, right? Like you have to foster them and they take time, right? And so I started thinking about like how do we develop friendships when we're younger, right? It's very easy to make friends when we're younger and it's proximity, right? Like you're spending time in school with people doing things on a consistent basis, like you start to recognize, like, oh, this person, I enjoy them, right? And so maybe we'll hang out. And so, like, I had to put myself in proximity with where people are. And I had to, like Carlos said, what do I like to do? Like, put myself in proximity of like people who like to do the same things that I like to do. And then like actually taking those steps and like being uncomfortable, accepting invitations, creating invitations, like making myself available to foster these friendships was really important for me. And I think about like the first time that I was asked to go like grab breakfast after an NA meeting, I said yes. And then I like drove over there and I like drove around the block 5 times because I was really scared to walk in because like sober interactions were really uncomfortable for me. And I did, and I was just like really grateful to be there and like build those relationships. And it is uncomfortable at first. And within the last year heard this statistic and it talks about like forming a friendship typically requires around 50 hours to become casual friends, around 100 hours to become regular friends, and over 200 hours of time spent together to become close friends, right?
Wow.
And so that like changes your perspective, like, because sometimes it's like, oh, I'm just not connecting with anybody, right? Like those connections take time and like take continually investing and like working through that discomfort to build those relationships. And that really helped me, right? Rather than like kind of sitting around like, oh, nobody invites me to go anywhere or do anything. Like, no, let's make this happen. Let's build relationships. There is plenty of opportunities out there to get involved in things. It's just a matter of like figuring out where you're going to commit your time and like and showing up.
Mm-hmm. You have so many stories from the car, like these really profound moments of you driving around making decisions. I love it.
But I spent a lot of time in my car. It must have been my safe place.
Well, I before we close out, I want to thank you both so much for sharing more, giving suggestions for folks watching live or in the recording. We do have a number of other webinars around this topic, navigating, being around people who are still drinking, going to holiday parties, setting boundaries, lots of different topics. So don't hesitate to check those out. But I thought we could end with some kind of joy, some hope. Carlos just got back from a music festival, so he's not sitting at home alone anymore. Um, just like I would love if you could both take a moment and just kind of describe your relationships today.
Yeah, I mean, and even speaking of like a music festival, right? That was fun. So, that's the something to people can be surprised by is I certainly was in the boat of like, well, if I'm sober, life is boring, life is not fun. And so like that was something that also helped me back from finding sobriety myself. But reality is that life can become fun and enjoyable, and there's so many moments of happiness. I think that what it really comes down into is like you yourself, if you are able to be a fun person, you can have fun in life, with making meaningful relationships. You can gather your friends to go on like a camping trip or go on a hike or go fishing. There is so many activities that you can do in life that doesn't need to include drugs or alcohol, and you can really be surprised by how fun life can truly get. One of the things, I know the topic is like, will I lose friends if I get sober? And I was thinking about the title too, but another question would also be, will I make friends if I'm sober? And the answer is yes, you absolutely will make friends when you're sober. The cool thing too is that you will meet people who share the similar values as you. Sobriety offers you that opportunity to get to know yourself, even in those moments you're alone, right? Something that is scary. It can still serve a purpose for you to get to know yourself so that you meet like-minded people, right? That whose personalities balance yours, whose goals match your same goals. Life can become really wonderful in that way when now through that connection to yourself, you are able to make better connections with people. And it truly 100% does happen. So that is the hope that I'm leaving you guys today is that life does get better, friendships do become more meaningful, and life becomes fun.
And what a great way to flip that question. Like, will I make friends when I'm sober? I love it. Katie, what about you?
Yeah, I think my win is something that I've been reflecting on quite a bit recently is just like the growth that I've had and like being able to just show up in situations that before I would have been like, oh man, I need to have a drink or oh man,
Mm.
I need to get high before this because I just didn't like trust myself socially and I just like didn't really like value the person that I was. And so now like I can show up for like a play date with my kids as friends as parents and like just feel confident and like just being in that space without having to like pretend to be somebody that they might like and just like allowing myself to be, and that feels like a win for me. And it also kind of like changes the feeling of like desperately wanting relationships to feel okay about myself, right? Like, because I just get to be me. And then the relationships that happen, right? And I'm grateful for those. And I'm not freaking out about the ones that like just didn't fall into place.
Mm-hmm. Thank you both so much. Thank you, everyone who's watching today, watching the recording. If you have any other questions for us, maybe you want to meet with a coach, you want to get some more personal feedback from one of our awesome coaches, you can do that at wefaceit together.org. We've got a big green button corner in the corner. You can't miss it. It's a great way to get started in coaching. So we want to be here for you if you have any questions. Thank you again.